Welcome to my interview with Rebekah McClaskey of Transform Now Counseling. Rebekah is a relationship counselor, and we're here today to discuss the pains, the sorrows, and the victories of having a divorce. And I am a parenting coach. I work with many families, some of them in distress with divorces. Divorces affect children, divorces affect ourselves, and I thought it would be very helpful to all of us to hear from an expert how we can make a divorce more successful, more peaceful, and also more harmonious for our children. So thank you, Rebekah. I'm very excited to talk to you today about your work and about what you can offer couples. I just would like to say that we all know that divorce is one of the most stressful experiences that we can go through in a lifetime. And I think that, would you agree that the three most stressful experiences are divorce, death, and moving?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
And interestingly, all of these have to do with a breakup, right? The breakup of a home because we move to a different place, the breakup of a relationship because somebody passes,
Sure.
and then the breakup of a relationship, a family relationship, because we enter into a divorce. So what makes breakups so difficult for us to get along with?
Well, relationship is really the fabric of our lives. I mean, not to quote a commercial, but it is really how we learn and grow. And if it weren't for romantic relationship in the first place, we wouldn't have families. Because I think most people would just naturally just say, I'm going to be single, forget it, right? If it weren't for attraction and all that gravity that pulls us together. So once you start to build that momentum, you start to share yourself and become vulnerable and open up. And then life plans happen. I know a lot of people who are going through a breakup really had the sense of I had my life set. I kind of had my checklist. I had and I started to check it off. And then all of a sudden, or gradually, it can be different for different people, the relationship begins to dissolve, right? It's no longer workable. There's not willingness on either party to grow. So breakup is very hard and difficult because it takes us out of this higher creative space and puts us into survival. We go into oh my gosh, do I have food? Do I have shelter? And then one up from that is the emotional thing about feeling worthless or not having worth. So it's definitely, like you mentioned, one of the most challenging transitions for people to go through for those reasons.
So when people have so much drama in their lives, I personally, of course, we all have that drama. I mean, the statistics tell us 40 to 50% of marriages divorce, and then add to that all the breakups that happen in unmarried relationships. And it's almost like all of us at one time or other experience the drama of such a separation that is so painful. And what I've seen in my own family, actually, is that it can take years. It can take so many years to get over it. And some people don't get over it. It's a fact. And so do you feel like there are really tools that we have today that we didn't have in the past maybe, or we weren't aware of, that really help us get over this?
Well, cultural norms have shifted, and gender roles have shifted, and marriage has shifted because now there's gay marriage, and that has definitely shifted a lot of things as well. So when you're saying, do we have tools to help us navigate separation and divorce that are different from the past? What I would say is we have more divorce than we did in the past because for many reasons, but some of them is geographically, people were stuck. There wasn't as much travel, and we're going back just about 120 years. So just in that amount of time, we've advanced so much that it makes it a little bit easier to say, like, this is uncomfortable, I'm not happy,
Mhm.
screw you, I'm out, right?
Yeah.
So the current and modern tools we do have is we have much more access to different routes of communication, right? So it's much more instant, and that can work for and against us.
Yes.
It can work for and against us. But the one tool that has stayed, or one component that has stayed true throughout history, is the human heart.
Right.
Right? The capacity for the human heart to truly love and give love and be loved is, I think, is the greatest skill that we learn in relationship. And we learn, I definitely know this to be true, going through breakups, right? Sometimes the not having lets us understand a little bit better about, what it does mean to love and what it means to be in that place. So, specifically to your question, I think that we are less skilled in some ways than we used to be. But there's one thing that remains true, is the capacity to love is within everybody.
As far as us being less skilled in the heart, in some ways I have to agree with you. But I also see that many of those long-lasting marriages of our forefathers and mothers were really not that happy. It was just more a habitual or an agreement that was just simply not broken. And I know one of your tagline is from break up to break through. I like that tagline, and I can tell you why, because I feel a divorce or any kind of an experience of that sort can really help us to grow in our own self-awareness, in our own expanding of who we really want to be. So if this partner was not right for us and we are initiating the divorce, that could be one way to experience that breakthrough. But if we are being initiated by someone breaking up with us, that too eventually I feel could be a means to understanding a larger me. Would you agree?
I would, and I want to say that Jack, I think Cornfield, who's he's an author and a proponent of mindfulness, really says that relationship is a spiritual path.
Yes.
And I recently read that Tony Robbins, who's one of the greatest speakers, said relationship is the place we go to give.
Yeah,
and
that's beautiful.
And that just feels different in your body when you say that, right? If you think about, like, what gifts am I pouring into the relationship? So those are different ways of looking at relationship, but I don't think those are the classic ways of looking at relationship. I think that the classic ways still kind of skirt the edge of fairy tales and like the happy ending in movies is like they got married, but then you don't see anything else after that, right? Or if there's drama in the relationship, there's like a little section of that, and then somehow it gets resolved or whatever. If it's like a romantic comedy, which is kind of the genre this comes in. So anyway, you have to remind me of your specific question again around relationships.
Yeah, that I think that because breakups happen so much more frequently today, and could this also be part of that? People travel their journey more consciously, rather than saying like, we're just together for whatever it is. We're just walking through this life together. Today, people have more of a desire to learn more about who they really are, or to possibly discover new potential within themselves, or to reach out into maybe personal freedoms that were not available in other generations before us. So that the let's say the commitment to just having children, raising a family, and getting old together, that there are other values as well right now that we are called to, or that some of us feel at least called to.
So I mean, what we're speaking to a little bit is the cultural switch. Yes. So if you just think of patterns and families get handed down. But one of the switches that we really saw around like the 60s or 70s is the kids that came from the classic 50s stoic dad worked home then raised their kids differently, right? So we went through the 80s, and that was all about amassing. He who has the most toys wins, right? That was about amassing power. That was about, and there was like a kind of a coddling nature that came from that. And one of my favorite lines is that convenience breeds apathy. So we created a very like convenient society. So what I'm saying is that what's showing up in relationship is there is a gravity towards like, I'm going to get in this relationship because it's going to make me happy. I want happiness in my life.
Yes.
You know, there's this idea that we're supposed to, you know, feel good, and somehow that kind of can get mixed into the self-help, what you were talking about, the spiritual component, and people can ride that a little bit like a high, as opposed to like the fast track, right? That's what I mean. Convenience breeds apathy. There's not a lot of like sense of like groundedness, accomplishment, like going through the struggle together, right? So let's contrast the traditional, what they used to call the nuclear family, right? Where they're like, we're here to have kids, dad earns a living, have a bomb shelter in the backyard, like whatever. And now we're in a much more, I would say, fluid society, and who raises kids, who earns the money, and the way people express themselves sexually. It's much more fluid society. So the point being is that maybe there was an extreme on one end around stoicism, and we're just going to buckle down and do this. And what I feel like there's a reaction on the other extreme, which is like, I just want to be happy, and if I'm not happy, then I'm leaving. I'm out of here. So the work that happens, I think, with counselors and the real sort of guides, people have chosen to be guides, is to help like meld the two, right?
That is a nice vision.
Help bring together the two sides.
Both
the grit and also the joy.
Because what I pick up from what you say is that in neither model, neither today nor in the old version of marriage, was the heart really heard. The heart somehow got lost in the middle. Today it's getting lost because there's too much liquid commitments. And in the past it was maybe lost because it was too much stoic commitments. That's excellent. I really enjoy hearing that, because I do believe that we need to work out a model that meets in the middle those true dreams and desires of the heart. I just had a sense when I prepared for this interview that I thought, everybody dreams so much about an everlasting happy marriage that there must be the possibility, otherwise we wouldn't all dream about it. There must be something to it. We just haven't had maybe focus on this issue to bring together all the tools that we have to really create it. So it's not as easy as in a movie. Tell us something about it. What from your toolbox or from your experience, from your focusing on this topic, what would make a marriage more lasting, more everlasting, happy, romantic, as well as having a good foundation?
It can be a bit campy, and I'm sure the audience and people out there have heard it, that communication is really key. But I found, I'll put this in a couple of really succinct terms. So communication, trust. Trust is absolutely huge. It's the brick in the mortar. And willingness from both parties. Because first of all, when I say willingness, that means that when two people come together, they're not going to grow like at the same rate. Someone might jut forward, someone might, but it's a dance, right? But dancing is so much fun. Dancing should be so much, even if you're like stepping on each other's feet a little bit, which is like which is like the scuffs and the arguments and like the heart, like it's like the dance, like the rhythm, right?
Yes.
Like that's, so the willingness is just saying like, hey, I'm going to come myself, all battered, bruised, unskilled, but I'm going to show up and we're going to do this dance together, right? And the container then is commitment,
right?
Saying like, you and me, babe, no matter what, right?
Yes.
You know, your stinky breath in the morning and whatever. So that's a component is, and then what happens if you say, oh, we're going to do this dance, we're going to create this rhythm, it can, it's not always 100%, but it creates a consistency, right? It creates like a flow to the relationship, and that opens people up to trust. When there's sort of like, I know you, and you know me, and I let you know me, right? And the I let you know me is when you see union happen in a relationship. But what I see in my office, and a lot of time, is I see, instead of union, I see competition.
Yes.
Right? Like, I'm going to win this. I'm going to win. I'm in protective survival mode. So willingness to do the dance, and then the last really big piece, and I've named it in a different way, is that everybody has a price of admission. So when you're around people who are really gregarious and outgoing, you might have to like not talk as much, but that's what you're willing to pay to be around them, right?
Yes.
So sort of learning the exchange between partners really lends to a strong foundation in marriage and relationship.
It sounds to me like being more conscious in a way of understanding. Maybe I married a gregarious person because I'm more quiet, and that's why I married them, rather than first wanting the opposite and then being bothered by it.
Right. Yeah.
Sort of like being more conscious also of the shortcomings of each other. Do you think that's important, or the limitations that humans just bring into life, all of us?
Well, there's a really great way to think about it is, from, sure, we have opposable thumbs and bigger brains, but we're animals too. So there's a lot of instinct that goes into it, and it's sort of like having our like remedial training and going into like an aerospace kind of program, and you're like, do I push the red button, or like that's, so what I'm saying there is that a lot of people go into relationships or parenting with instinctual skills.
Yes.
And those only get us so far.
That's right.
Right? And then the next level up is learning the communication. The next level up is learning communication. Yeah.
Really. Because I believe that those instinctual levels in us are often relating to our own experiences, to our subconscious and unconscious experiences, that we do not consciously process them. And, when our buttons are pushed, so to speak, then we're often not even in charge of what we feel or think, much less can be communicated well to another person. But let me ask you, like, for those that have gone through really severe disappointment, let's say their partner was not loyal to them, or their partner did not dance the dance, or what I've been dealing with, also their partner at times strategically tried to abuse their finances, abuse their their service as a spouse, whatever.
Right.
There are all kinds of scenarios that can be very hurtful in a marriage. Could you say something? I know there is a whole counseling process behind this, where people work through these disappointed or painful emotions. But what could we say in this interview that would bring some relief or some assistance to the people who are living through these types of experiences?
Who are truly rocked by divorce, separation, or even the relationship they're in.
Yes.
And just asking sort of what what counseling can give them.
Yes, like their partner is not engaged in the dance, let's say, or their partner is some of them consciously try not to dance and
Right.
get what they want out of
Right.
it, where there is this pattern. But I'm also thinking, like, when you are done with a relationship and you feel disappointed and weighed down, can their happiness be relearned? What can help them really let go of it and just move on and maybe make a better choice in the future down the road? But there's a woundedness, or at least a feeling of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of an existential and core answer to that is we're all creators. So I'll say that again because it'll make sense to some people out there who've watched things like The Secret or the Abraham Code. They'll be like, ding. But if it's not, that's not in your language. What I mean is that our thoughts, feelings, and actions, when combined together, create a reality. Now, I also want to give the next level up, because people, if you hear this, you can really think to yourself, like, well, I hear people say this a lot, what did I do to attract such a jerk into my life? If it's something flawed or wrong about me. And the lowest emotion, the most dense and heaviest emotion we can feel is shame. Like, I'm wrong, I'm bad, I'm flawed. Right up from that is guilt. Like, I violated something. So when it comes to these partners who won't dance or these abusive relationships, that can really, much like pain gives us a warning, like, oh, there's something off, right? Yes. I need to take care of something. Shame is also a warning that we're living in a really low, we're living in deep instinct. We're living sort of in more of an animal state, right? Wow. So when you are in these abusive relationships, that's a very big cue about it's, instead of just imagining having a canvas and you're painting with nothing but black. Yes. And when you can relieve the shame, and that can come from childhood wounding, like you were told you were really bad, or parents split and you felt like I had to take sides, or there's many source things that source shame. So when you can rise, and this is also the work that gets done in counseling, to name it, claim it, and reframe it, when you can rise out of that shame, it will inevitably reshape the relationships in your life and what you allow into your life. So that becomes a place of, you are a creator. You're a very powerful creator, but you need more colors than just black. You need more colors than just shame. Does that make sense?
Perfectly. So this is the other question. Is someone who really works on their divorce as an experience for self-empowerment, let's say it that way, would you agree that they really bring benefit to their children? Or in what ways might that work for them or not work for them?
The framework that I operate from is very simple, which is there can be a lot of judgment around this is good, this is bad, that provides, and that, good and bad have their own. Good can equal entitlement for some people, bad can equal shame for other people. But this is almost like how we decipher, like, what's, how I'm handling my divorce. I'm handling it good, and the kids, and that will spill over to kids, or I'm handling it bad, and that will spill over to kids. What I would say is that I work from a framework, it's functional or dysfunctional. Okay. Right? There's a functional, it doesn't mean it's pleasant, right? But then again, summiting Mount Everest isn't pleasant, right? But it is a soul growing experience, right? Nice. Yes. And in the same way, you know, there can be this idea of like, if I just had everything provided for me, if I was just so rich, if I was just given whatever I want, and what you see, the human spirit crumples there. They crumple and they actually stay regressed in a very young age. So what I invite is, there is functional challenge, and there is dysfunctional challenge, right?
Yes.
And what a parent can do is they really cultivate their own coping mechanisms that helps them sort of rise to the occasion and make challenge functional, right? And that in any life is such a beautiful example, right? To say to a kid, listen, you're not going to always get what you want. There are going to be challenges. There are going to be bullies. There are going to be milestones, but be thankful for them, because these things are going to cultivate character, right?
Yes.
This is going to cultivate character. And I absolutely know that when going through divorce, if there are no kids involved, it definitely can get a little bit more combative, because there's not that stop point to be like, oh, wait a minute, I have to be an example.
Right.
But in any challenge, and parenting is challenging, okay? Parenting, just even without divorce, just like deciding to have a family, when to have a family, not to mention that families are now starting later in life. So you're seeing a lot of people in their 40s with like an 8-year-old, or so that is challenging into itself. So the whole category is not to be like, I'm good, I'm bad. You can be like, I'm functional, I'm in a dysfunctional place, and that's the measure.
That's a very nice concept. I also do believe that when our children are going through crisis, they also have the opportunity to grow from it. I like your real life approach really to these matters, because relationship is not always an easy, smooth ride. None of life is that.
No.
And you know, we have been so heavily programmed through media, through video, through movie, through, you know, romance novels, through all kinds of things that we enjoy looking at, but really what they're telling us is that it's going to be an easy ride. And really it's not going to be an easy ride eventually. And looking at the challenges as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Like you say, being functional beyond the stumbling blocks.
I can just give one really simple sort of contrasting thing. So patience is believing something will happen, and waiting is believing it won't, right?
Okay.
So, and in the same way, you know, people can be like, how are you optimistic versus pessimistic versus realistic versus... So, in the moment, and it just be very clear, in the moment you're going through divorce or you're going through breakup, like, forget trying to be optimistic, right? Forget forcing yourself to be anything other than you are in that moment. Because when you're in court or when you're battling custody, I mean, I have a dear friend who is like, there's a special kind of awful having your kid taken away from you know? So I don't want to placate people with optimism, saying like, oh, just, you know, put a silver lining on it, because it's not silver. It's gray and it's bleak and it's hard, and again, that's why counselors exist. To help support that, because making decisions from those places is infinitely challenging. It's infinitely challenging. So so I can share sort of the framework of functional versus dysfunctional, but I'm also very aware of just the acute pain. And you mentioned earlier, like how some people, it takes years to really heal or let go. And I really just want to say this clearly, that is normal. If you have dared to love, right? What we get told is stop loving. No, you learn to love more. You actually learn to from a broken heart, from a shattered heart, it actually, the healing there creates more space, right?
Yes.
But when we're told stop loving, that's when we
Yes.
end up cutting ourselves off, and it becomes even harder.
To even embrace the suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I just also want to say, as a parenting coach in a different field than you work, but I do see that in some divorces, children are being used to punish each other. Like, in custody cases, or one parent might try whatever they can. And this is not gender specific, by the way. We hope that our male friends out there will also give us an ear and listen in, because divorces go bad both ways.
Yes.
And parents are dysfunctional both ways eventually, using their children to try to punish another parent. From my heart, is really one of the worst things I have seen in divorce at all. And I wish that many people that have challenges in their emotional processing would just go out and seek help for a little while they're going through this, to make it really much more easy on everyone, especially their children. Children being taken away from a parent, that is a great hardship for any child. And most parents out there, even though couples may think of each other as, like you said, a jerk, or he may think, what a bitch.
Right.
But the child always adores the parent.
Yes.
That's just the fact, unless there's a very severe abusive kind of thing, which is in most cases not the case. So where do we go from here? What can we tell our viewers to wrap up this beautiful interview? I've so enjoyed listening to you.
Well, really, that the whole field of counseling, it gets taken up by some for just sheer curiosity. They're sort of just, humans can be innately curious, and for others it's a true calling, right? Because there's a term, wounded healer, and you beautifully mentioned that you've been through some really challenging life experiences, and that helps shape what you offer. And I would say the same is true for me. I've been through some very challenging losses in my life that has sort of directed me to do the work that I do. So what I can say to our viewers is that you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to be stoic and and grit through it. That you actually can do it in a way that's skillful. And I think that's the support that you offer, and I certainly know that is the support I offer, that people can go through their breakups or relationship challenge, like getting married and being like, oh, this isn't working, or whatever that looks like, to really give them clear tools so that they can skillfully move forward.
I could even see someone like you being a great go-to person before people get married, to really give that the full conscious foundation, and even accompany themselves into this marriage with this extra support, to step out of the unconscious into a conscious, heart-opened marriage relationship.
Right, yeah.
Thank you so much, Rebekah. I really enjoyed listening to you, and thanks to our viewers for looking in on us. And if you are interested, if you like this video, let us know. We'll make more videos to inspire you and help your relationship and help your children grow also. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.